Welcome, friends and fans, to another edition of GalaxyCon Live, where we are bringing the convention experience directly to you. And today, we are going back to the galaxy far, far away with our most imperious guest. And now is the time for all of you in our chat room to begin typing in your questions for him. Immediately after this session, you will have the opportunity to talk to him directly through our private chat options, as well as shop our selection of personalized autographs, all of which are available now at galaxycon.com. So without further ado, let's move the ship from the asteroid field so that we can get a clear transmission. Our guest today is an Olivier and Tony award-winning actor and director whose body of work includes Dragon Slayer, Britannia, and an acclaimed stage performance in Faith Healer, and so much more. Today he joins us to discuss his career as well as the rise, fall, and resurrection of Sheev Palpatine, known to a select few as Darth Sidious, known to most as the Emperor. Please welcome Mr. Ian McDiarmid.
Hello, good to see you all, and a very good day from England. I'm a little throaty, you know. I'll have some more.
Whoops. Ian, looks like signal's a little bit wishy-washy. Remember, we're still in the asteroid field. We can't get that clear signal. Oh, dear. Now he's frozen up. All right, you're coming into... all right, you're a little clearer now. Okay. All right, you're good now. Okay, Ian, hi, how are you?
I'm extremely well. Very pleased to be back in this unusual medium, although, of course, it's intergalactic experiences are not exactly new to me, so here we are.
This is very, very true. Well, Ian, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the GalaxyCon virtual stage. As always, the past 18 months or so, we've been unable to host you and guests like you in our physical stages, but we created this wonderful online forum, and we're so glad to have you on it. Our team right now is going through our chat room, pulling out questions for us. In the meantime, whenever I have a solo guest, I always like to start off with this. What drew you to becoming an actor?
That's a long story. It was a long time ago. I was at school, and in primary 7, when I must have been about 10 years old, they were holding, if you can actually use the word correctly in this context, auditions for a tramp in a stage mime set to the tune of Waltzing Matilda, which is practically the Australian national anthem.
Yes.
And I was a very shy kid, so I didn't know anything about acting or anything like that. And the teacher said, okay, hands up those who want to be seen for the part of the tramp. And suddenly my hand shot up. It had nothing to do with me. I mean, it was almost like a Star Wars experience. And then I went out and did it and sat down again. And then this is probably indicative of how it went subsequently. I saw all the other people doing it, and I thought, no, I think I could do it better. And they had no aspirations to be actors, and neither had I at that time. But I suppose that was the beginning of this little spark inside me. So it wasn't I sort of felt that it was a decision already made for me. I mean, a lot of people feel like that about what they subsequently do. There's just something that starts them off. And that was the day that started it off for me.
Fantastic. So you went to school originally for psychology, I believe, but the acting bug was still entrenched within you.
Well, I was too scared, really. I was still a shy kid. I went to university because I had the right qualifications, lucky me, and a lot of my pals were doing it, and they were doing psychology. So I joined in, and it was very interesting, and I quite enjoyed it. But there was this yen always inside me to be an actor, but by and large, kids from where I came from didn't do that sort of thing. Or if they did it in an amateur way. They didn't take it seriously as a career. So I did that. But then when I got to my final year, I thought, no, this is crazy. I've got to try and do it. Otherwise, I'll be unhappy for the rest of my life. So I scraped a degree, left college, and then went to another college, the drama college in Glasgow. And that was the beginning of my journey into acting.
Indeed. And you had already had a well-established career on stage. At what point did Return of the Jedi blip on your radar?
Well, that came out of the blue. I just, my agent called and said, George Lucas would like to see you. Now, you don't hear that every day, especially not in London. I thought, well, why would he want to see me? Because I knew that they were, through friends, I knew they were shooting the movie, and I knew about the previous 2 movies, of course, I'd seen them. And so I thought, well, it's a bit late in the day to see someone to be in the movie, so I don't know, I'll go. And just as I was thinking all these thoughts, a car turned up just outside my front door, and I got in, and before I knew where I was down at the studios at Elstree. And there was George. It was a lunch break, and Richard Marquand, and they were very, very pleasant. I don't know what we chatted about. It wasn't anything important, really. Maybe even the weather, God help us. And as I was going out the door, 10 minutes, I thought, well, I got the chance to meet these people. That's great. And George said, "Hey, great nose." And he says he never said this, but I swear he did. So I thought, that's an unusual thing to say. Maybe that's a good idea, a promising sign. Anyway, I got home, and immediately I walked through the door. The phone was ringing, and my agent says, "You've got the part." So I said, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, really?
Talking about something. He said, no, they like you. They want you to be in Star Wars. I said, "Oh, okay. What's the part?" And he went, "Oh, God," and consulted his notes and said, "It's called The Emperor of the Universe." So I said, "Well, I guess we'll be doing it then." And you know the rest.
Absolutely, it became this became the icon to a generation, and certainly to the Star Wars fans.
Because I never imagined it was going to go on and on and on. For which, of course, I am very grateful and entirely delighted.
Certainly is. Now, I'm not sure if this was before or after, but you did do a scene stealing part in Gorky Park, which I really enjoyed.
Yes, that was around about the same time as Return of the Jedi. Yes, in which I played this guy who recreated people from their corpses in order that the investigation could lead to the person who'd murdered them in the first place. Who turned out to be, I'm not going to tell you in case you haven't seen Gorky Park.
I have.
It's worth a watch.
No, absolutely. A wonderful, wonderful cast in and of itself. So, Jedi is done. Of course, for many, many years, people were asking Hector, George Lucas, when are you going to do the prequels? When are you going to do the next movies or whatever? In the back of your head, were you always thinking, I wonder if I'm going to be involved in that?
No, I didn't even know there were going to be prequels, really, until, again, a friend of mine, an actor, who said, I think he was sworn to secrecy, I won't put his name, but he said, I've been filming something that's very unusual. It's a sort of series of test sequences. And we were out in somewhere very cold, I think it was Norway, and George Lucas was there. So I guess, although we were told nothing, nothing ever changes. I think he's working on something else to do with a Star Wars movie. And but I didn't think any more about it. But I got a call again from casting director, and she said, "Well, George is in town. Do you want to come and meet him?" So once again, the car arrived, and I got in it. And it was a hotel this time, and George was there. And I always say this, and I'm going to say it again, wearing the same shirt he wore in all those years ago. A very nice check shirt, of course, entirely clean. And said, "Hi, do you know anyone who'd like to play an emperor?" I said, "Well, funny you should say that." And he said, "Yeah, well, okay, cut to the chase. If you're interested, we'd like you back." But it's very strange because it's not really what you might imagine. Because Palpatine originally, of course, was just a human being like the rest of us. Give me a break. And he was a politician, just an ordinary guy, and actually quite nice. And he worked very, faithfully and hard for his queen and Padme. And that's all we're going to see in the first movie. And then there's this other guy. I'll just tell you a bit about the plot. So you tell me a bit about the plot. Who's sort of in the background, and he's manipulating everything. And he really is the sort of villainous lead of the movie. So I thought, I'd rather play that. Anyway, of course, I was very pleased to be doing Palpatine. And then I got this is true, I got the script, and again, of course, there was no mention of characters opposite paths. It was just the script. And again, I thought this is a pretty good part. But I only got certain sections of it at that time. Later on, I got the full thing.
Sure.
And when I got the call sheet, I saw that my name was opposite this character called Darth Sidious, as well as Palpatine. So I thought, God, I can't believe that. Organizations are so careful, they're so cautious about not releasing things. They've made this gigantic mistake. So and then I thought, oh, maybe they haven't. George, why didn't you tell me? It was me. But that's typical. It was good. It was mysterious. And then on the very first day, the very first shot, it was Rey, Darth Maul, and me in our hooded presences. And I said, "Do you want me to do the voice?" And George said, "No, don't be ridiculous. I haven't got there yet." So then I was putting two and two together and making four almost. But once again, it was so unexpected and so exciting, and it was clear there were going to be more movies unless a terrible sort of disaster had occurred. And George was interested in making them for obvious reasons, but also because he was once again refounding really the whole business of the digital screen, of digital technology. And he thought, as we go on, so I will find out more and more, and those films on that level, never mind on narrative level, character level, get more and more ambitious and more interesting, as they did, and I was lucky to be along for the ride.
It did. I remember back after the conclusion of the original trilogy, he had always said that he was waiting for computer technology
to catch up. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he said he literally wanted to say, "I want to fill the screen with 1,000 X-wings, and for it not to cost $1 billion in model work." And stuff like that.
And it was, alarmingly expensive. And that's why originally Yoda was going to be digitally created in Phantom Menace, but it was too expensive. And the technique wasn't as perfect as George would want it. So good old Frank came back with the puppet, which we all loved anyway. So
yeah, absolutely. And you got to work with Frank on Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, another film I did. That was another great, the auditions I've had, or non-auditions rather. Yes, I got a call from my agent. I was somewhere else in England. He said, "Come down. Frank Oz wants to meet you." I said, "Oh, that's nice. What? Maybe dinner or something?" No. It's directly movie. And he's got the great Steve Martin and the great Michael Caine. And the part is Michael Caine sort of handyman. He does everything around the place, looks after it, drives all around, looks after the emails. And by the emails on those days, yes, I think they might be. So I went in, and Frank said, "I'm so pleased you're here. Would you mind just doing a little bit with me, because you'll be up there with Michael and Steve, and there won't be any time to rehearse, as usual." So we improvised, and we ended up killing ourselves with laughter. And he said, "Yeah, I'd like you to come. Will you come?" So that's how Arthur happened. I think it was the next week or something else. I just rushed out. And beautiful location.
Yes, it was. It was Nice, nothing nicer than Nice. And we were there for a while. And it was so hot, and Steve was just delightful. It was also during the writers' strike, so certain lines came from certain quarters that perhaps they shouldn't have, but we were all, including me, very grateful for our thing more than that.
Absolutely, indeed.
Have a little of this water now.
Go right ahead. Yeah, don't want your voice to be all scratchy and gravelly.
No, we can't have that.
He did it.
There we go. Back to something.
Were you? What was your reaction, at least for the first movie, when George said, "Oh, by the way, you don't have to do prosthetics or any heavy makeup yet"?
Yes, he didn't actually say yet. He wouldn't have gone that far.
All right.
But he said no prosthetics. Just the hood, and we know we'll like you. And I also wanted to say, and of course the nose does everything, but that was a sensitive subject by then. So I didn't. Yes, but I kind of missed the prosthetics. So I like the prosthetics. I was very pleased to get back to them in a certain recent movie that with again brilliant people making my face do what it did.
Absolutely. And again, absolute kudos to you, and my thanks for your talents and your professionalism and your performance, especially through that initial trilogy. People have said that Palpatine could make an arguable case for being the protagonist of the first cycle of the Star Wars films.
I suppose you could say that in a way. Yes, he is the most evil thing ever, and we thought that was Darth Vader, didn't we? But here I am, even worse.
Indeed. And again, the readings of Friends, I Love Democracy, that the obsequiousness of Palpatine and the ingratiation, and it's just enough to be a great politician that people would believe in.
Yeah, and that was such a great line, actually. I mean, it's and that people quote it all the time now, and also typical of George, smuggling in those subtleties and being on the ball politically about what was happening back home and what might continue to happen. Who knows? Well, up and down. And finally,
several years later, I think you thought, you revisited the character occasionally in animation form and some gaming work, but then you got the email from J.J. Abrams.
Yeah. Yes, that was. I believe he introduced himself by email and apologized immediately because he hadn't met, because he's so, such a gentleman. And I believed it this time. And he said, give me a number I can call you on. So as fast as I could get the number back on the email, I did. And he called me and he said, he was very straightforward. He said, we want you back. We want the Emperor back. It makes complete logical sense to me. And he says, I think it will to everyone else. But he was behind it all along. And that the previous films of the sequels that people have seen, they knew there was something going on in the background, that all of these evil characters were somehow being recreated, remotivated, reworked by a hidden force. And he said, and of course, the logic is that the hidden force should be you. So that was even more exciting than the last one, because as you say, I realized then that throughout all 9 movies, I was the motivating force of everything that's bad. Yeah. And of course she destroyed me absolutely. I think watching that moment, I think he's not coming back after that. But of course he's still around, perhaps in other series, who knows, one way or another. I think probably with the makeup, should it happen. But no, I'm not offering any clues, because no one's approached me whatsoever. I've had no more crazy additions, but you'll be the first to know if I do.
Fair. I appreciate that. Indeed. I think every time we've said, well, that's a wrap for Palpatine, we've been wrong so far. So
yeah.
Maybe we'll be wrong again, but either way, we look forward to it in any form. And again, I just, as a longtime Star Wars fan, on behalf of our audience too, just thank you again for what you brought to this character. The performance, the villainy, and just making it so interesting to look at, interesting to that. You get every time he talks, the character says one thing, but you can hear his thoughts as being something else.
Good. And to be perfectly fair to George, who wrote it all, of course, the script for Palpatine allowed him to do that. I mean, no letter in that great scene in the opera, which he only decided to set it there at the last minute, because he could do one thing and think another quite easily there while pretending to watch the Squid Ballet. I think it was.
Yeah.
And also that was a very well written scene, in terms of pouring that poison into Anakin's ear. It was very subtle, and also it sort of, you could see why he finally went. I mean, to do with Padme largely, but also to do with his inside feeling about ambition and power.
Indeed. Absolutely, indeed. Well, Ian, thank you so much for indulging in my questions. I think we're going to go for audience questions. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and do our first one. And this first one comes from Randall, and he wants to know, if you ruled the galaxy, what would be your first order of business?
Well, of course, I'd have to cure the pandemic, wouldn't I? But there wouldn't be one in the galaxy, probably. There would be other things. But I don't know. I would try and think, along the lines of the pandemic, what is the sort of thing that could be best done for humanity? Research that and then do it.
Absolutely works. Randall, thank you. Fun question. What do we have next? From Gabe in Brazil. What is your favorite non-Star Wars role?
That I've played myself? Yes, there are so many, I could always say this, but one of my real favorites was being on Broadway in this play called Faith Healer, in which I played this sweet, hopeless, failed, semi-alcoholic agent who went on the road with these 2 very close friends, and he liked them more than they liked him. The faith healer who pretended to cure and sometimes did, and his girlfriend who had a terrible time, and with whom the character I played, who's called Teddy, was in love. And none of that was going anywhere. And there were 4, we tried to avoid saying the word at the time because it sounds like a very boring evening, 4 monologues, but they're not. They all interconnect in surprising ways. And it was great to do that, first of all in Ireland, but most of all on Broadway. And we were all a bit nervous. Ray Fiennes played the faith healer, and Cherry Jones was his girlfriend. 2 of the best actors in the world, on stage and on screen. But we were still a bit nervous that it might be a lot for the audience to take. Well, we found the opposite. New York audiences, they you just hang on every word, really. So it was thrilling to do that, and lovely to act in New York. I'd like to do it again one day.
Mm-hmm. And that was the role that got you a Tony, correct?
Yeah, lucky me.
No, it's not luck. It's something you earned.
Well, it's a bit of that, yeah.
Yeah. Gabe, thank you. Wonderful question. What do we have next? From Lisa, #1 Trek fan. She comes to a lot of our shows here. Who was the biggest influence in your career?
It has to be another actor, really. There was an actor, a wonderful actor who acted in America sometimes on stage and in movies, called John Wood, who was his great strength is you always felt that he was making everything up as he went along, where he wasn't, of course. He was entirely on text the whole time, particularly in Shakespeare. So I looked up to him as a kind of benchmark of how to do it. And then in more recent years, someone I had the good chance to work with on a television film, which was great, was the great Sir Anthony Hopkins, who I think is our best. Well, he's Wales's best, but he's certainly Britain's best too. And it was so thrilling to see him recently rewarded again for his performance in The Father, which I've yet to see. It's coming out soon in cinemas, and that's where I'm going to see it. So these are the two.
Absolutely fine. I am a fan of both. I'm a fan of John Wood, especially. He was just always, well, I've never seen his theater work, but he was just always one of those actors that would pop up in roles. Everybody else, I particularly liked him in McKellen's Richard III as the brother. Yes, really stole a scene in that.
Richard III later on, and was marvelous too.
Fairly nice. Lisa, thanks so much. Good to see you again. What do we have next? Christopher Christie. If Palpatine could team up with a villain from any other franchise or story or whatnot, who would it be?
Difficult to say. I think he wouldn't team up. He's not a team player. That's an easy answer, isn't it? No, he'd find something that wasn't quite human. Surprise, surprise. Is there a terrible villain that's just made of slime or something like that? It would ooze out of every pore when required. I can't think of that. Mustn't there?
There's an evil tar pit in Star Trek canon.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I'll go for him. On the other hand, the one I like most, if I can just slightly question, is the Joker in Batman. He's been wonderfully played by a whole series of actors. And the great thing is, of course, he's not a joke. And he's not a joke to himself. He's a mess, but a destructive mess. And occasionally an entertaining one. So I'm afraid that he and the Emperor would get on really well.
Absolutely. I could totally see that in any of the Joker's forums. So, Christy, thank you. Wonderful question. What do we have next? And here's one from Alex. Oh, do you enjoy directing or acting more?
Acting, certainly, and I don't really direct anymore. When I used to run a theatre, the Hamlet Theatre in London, with another actor, Jonathan Kent, who's now a full-time director, I felt I sort of should direct as well as act. That's what you do, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And I had a good time, by and large. But when we got into the theatre, it was great rehearsals, working with other actors, no problem. Loved working with the designers, the technical people, the lighting people, the musicians, all of that, seeing it come together and being a sort of chairman of all of that. But when I got in front of the cast with an audience at the early previews, all my objective judgment went right out of the window. I just thought, my God, they've turned up, isn't that great? God, they look so good in that costume. And this is no help to you if you're a director. And I go around and say, I hope nice things. And they go, well, thanks. Good, I'm glad you think that. Any, advice or criticism? And I suddenly think, I wasn't really paying attention. That's when I knew I wasn't a director. And so it was never, it was again something I felt I should do, and it was all right up to a point. But it just can't compare with acting. And I suppose when those actors came on stage and I was sitting there with my pad and pen ready to take notes, I wanted to be up on stage with them. And so there we are. But my great friend Jonathan Kent, who was co-director of the Almeida with me, he was an actor then and he's a very good actor, but he was never wholly happy doing it and found himself as a director. So that was gratifying for the theatre and gratifying for him. And now he's doing lots of things. He's got a movie coming up.
Outstanding. So, Alex, thank you very much. Wonderful question. What do we have next? From Dante. What is your favorite science fiction television show, movie, and I'll add or book?
Right. Well, I'm going to say something that's really not Star Trek, of course. I'm not supposed to say that. But, we're supposed to be the great competitors, aren't we, Star Trek? But I've never felt that, and also because I know, and we worked together at the Royal Shakespeare Company many years ago, Patrick Stewart very well. So that would be the sort of thing. But I don't know. There are so many, aren't there? I like the recent Marvel franchise. I think that's wonderfully done. And it continues to be exciting, the way we hope Star Wars has been as well, Because the writers, everybody involved, are always looking for surprising and different things to do with the characters. And that's what makes a piece of art live.
Indeed. And yeah, in the old days of fandom, there was a stiff rivalry between Star Trek and Star Wars fans, but it's mellowed over the years.
Yes. I think it was fun too, for one to pretend that they had nothing to do with the other.
Yes.
And every time someone said mistakenly to me, "I love your work in Star Trek," I would give them a kind of look that the Emperor might give to somebody. But then I'd laugh and say it was a joke. Which you want?
Hey, there you go. Dante, thank you. Fun question. What do we have next? Here's one from Connor. Have you ever had any input on the character Palpatine throughout the years?
Quite a lot, really. I mean, the great thing about George is that he spends a lot of time casting, getting who he thinks is the right person for the role, and then he lets them get on with it. And he expects that they will do that, having seen in them the potential that he saw in the first place. So I had a considerable degree of freedom within the parameters of makeup and all the rest of it. And in Return of the Jedi, of course, the Emperor had appeared, as everyone knows, in the previous movie, The Empire Strikes Back. And of course, he wasn't fully identified as a character, but he did have Clive Rebel's voice, the great Clive Rebel, to whom I pay enormous respect as a stage actor and as somebody who's been in a lot of movies. And I also felt a little bit guilty. I see him occasionally at conventions, and he spits at me. He doesn't at all. No, he's very charming, very charming back. But given the fact that was how the Emperor was first presented, I suppose there were many choices, but George hadn't really thought that through, nor had Richard Marquand, who directed the movie. They imagined that I would sort of sound a bit like Clive Rebel, and maybe if I didn't, they would have invited Clive back to have no evidence of it, to do the role. But when I saw the makeup and the costume and so on, I thought, well, he does look like this terrible, back to slime again, slimy dude. And so he probably, if Clive had seen all that, I'm sure he would have altered his voice too. So I said, I think he should sound a bit like he looks. And so, they all said, show us what you mean. And so I just found that voice from somewhere down there and did it. And no one said stop. And yet, and in movies, when no one says, "What are you doing?" or "We're going on, and we don't want any of that, thank you." You think, "So far, so good." And then, anyway, I considered the whole movie doing that. But I knew most things in those days had to be revoiced because the sound wasn't as advanced as it is. Digital sound didn't exist, and so on.
Yeah.
So there were so many channels going on at once. So I knew I would be going back, and to revoice. And I was there at the studio in the story in South Audley Street with George and Steven Spielberg and Kathleen Kennedy, who I met for the first time.
Wow.
And George said, "I want to be two friends of mine." Oh, God, got to do my voice again in front of the bad enough doing it in front of George and seeing myself for the first time. The way. Anyway, they couldn't have been more charming. And I wondered also if he got along to see if what I was doing was maybe going to work. I don't know, no evidence, but anyway, they couldn't have been. And when I started off with the voice, and particularly when I did the laugh, that sort of thing, George, wasn't George, no, Stephen said, "Oh my God, you're evil." So I reckon he clinched it, if it hadn't clinched it before. And then we all went out to lunch for a hamburger around the corner. It was a great day.
Yeah, history definitely said, like, yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. And also, we had this joke in, just to go on a bit, in the last of the sequels of Revenge of the Jedi, that when George reset the scene, which was going to be in an office in the Opera House, that I would be able to say, when people asked, maybe I'm going to preempt a question, I'm not, is there anything good about this character? I would say, yes, he goes to the theatre. So that was a shared joke. And in fact, it was the ballet, which I think I only later discovered, like the rest of us, because we were watching anything. You know, there were two cameras and a bit of green screen behind us, and we were pretending, as we not infrequently do. And later on, George confessed it was going to be a squid ballet, and indeed it was. And they're very talented, these squids. I wonder what they've been doing in lockdown.
Oh, good point. Yeah. You know, it's always been a fan theory to wonder what Palpatine did in his downtime. And in my own headcanon, I've always said, I think he's a patron of the arts. I think despite his evil nature, I think he appreciates art. And I think it's beyond his morality.
I think he probably does. Probably a particular kind of art. I mean, apart from Squid Ballet, it's probably the kind of art that Hitler enjoyed. You know, not the kind of art that probably really want a lot of people to see.
Yes. Okay, we're waiting for that backstory at the height of Palpatine's power. And now it's 7:00. Time for a mandatory viewing of Squid Ballet.
Yes, I think they could go far. Maybe they have gone far. Maybe I'm just out of touch. Zooming away, you know, I'm sure. Just search. You'll probably find it.
Connor, thank you. A wonderful question. And a reminder to our audience, if you would like to chat with our guests like I am now, or purchase a personalized autograph, please sign up at galaxycon.com. Hey, let's go ahead and roll another one. Thank you again, Connor. Fun one. Here's one from Eric. Oh, what was your favorite behind-the-scenes moment from Star Wars?
I suppose, and it's a pleasure to pay tribute to him. It was a moment with Dave Prowse. Again, it was a humorous moment. And of course, my first day on set in Return of the Jedi, there's no time to be introduced to anyone. I knew, of course, Dave was a very tall person and that his voice was not going to be his. It was going to be the great James L. Jones, and he knew that, so there was no mystery about it. But I didn't know that when I came down those steps out of the shuttle at the beginning and saw him for the first time, it was a rehearsal which later became a take. That I wouldn't be able to hear him because they didn't magnify his voice and he was way up there. So I just had to guess when he finished speaking, or to think in my mind that how James might be going to do it later when he was recording it.
Right.
That was our first encounter, but that wasn't the thing that was most memorable. It was a lot encounter on film, although I saw him a good few times after that, I have to say. When Palpatine was apparently killed, he wasn't, as we all know, when he was put down that terrible shuttle and maimed horribly before he could, get the best scientists in the world to put him together again, and we all know who they are. I had to be thrown down that chute, and in order to maybe go down, I had to be winched up. So that's what they do. They winch you up, and then they reverse the shot. Very, very simple. Right. It's a very peculiar thing to do. But that's all Dave had to do was to catch my ankles as he went like that, and he just sort of, but he was, he's very tall. He was in the suit. He couldn't see a face. So I used to end up, every take, swinging around the studio for ages. And, I really enjoyed it. I thought I could do a bit more of this flying. So when we did meet each other, we would reminisce about the amazing moment when he didn't catch me as I went up to go down.
Oops.
Oops, I think was probably the expression most used that day. Yeah.
Oh, gracious. Practical effects.
Yeah.
Eric, thank you so much. It was a great question. What's next? Here we have one from Lynn. Well, do you have any Star Wars memorabilia? And if so, what is your favorite?
I don't own any of it. I give it away, or I'm happy to sign it. I suppose the things I like most that occasionally friends of mine have, and actually I wear one as pajamas. This is really intimate. I'm giving away a secret. It's things with, and don't send them, please. the things with Sith on it. I just like that. I like that word, and it's just, if you can, I have a few T-shirts, and sometimes not in the street, of course, that would be grotesquely embarrassing, but occasionally if a friend comes out, I put on a Sith T-shirt. So that's what I feel really close to. But no, I don't have any models, or I have a few, photographs that I sign now and again, and photographs of the movies with friends. These are my memorabilia. Mark and Carrie and so on. So these are the nice things to keep. But as far as the models of the Emperor are concerned, I'll leave that to you guys.
There are plenty of people to do that for you. Don't worry. Lynn, thank you very much. Great question. Ed, here's one from Lisa. What was your reaction to the original Star Wars?
I saw it and I felt, well, the way George had always described it, it was like one of those matinee serials that I'd grown up with as a kid. It had the same kind of swashbuckling excitement. Although this was sci-fi, this was a different universe. But, it had heroes and villains, and a whole series of unexpected incidents followed each other, and you couldn't wait to feel what was going to happen next, hence the prequels and so on. But of course, I had no idea that Peter Cushing would be talking about me. And that retrospective is a great thing, because he was a marvelous actor. Unfortunately, I never got to meet him. I got to meet and work with, as you know, his great friend, Christopher Lee. So I learned a lot about him. But the idea that he was the Emperor, sort of vicar on earth, was very appealing. But it is, lots of people say this about parts of the subsequent play. So you go along, see a movie or something with some friends, it's just a night out, and later on you find you're actually in it. all those years, and you never knew until it exploded in the form of a contract.
There you go. And what was it like with Christopher Lee? I'm as a sci-fi and a horror buff, I'm a huge fan of his, so I've always been curious.
Yes, me too. I could easily have mentioned him when that good question about actors. I saw him in lots of things, obviously Dracula. And there's a great film called The Devil Rides Out. And I was always very, very impressed by his acting. Again, he is someone who was extremely good at conveying what goes on behind the eyes. And he almost made Dracula into a tragic character, I think, which is, that's not easy to do. What Dracula does. He had this great sort of gravitas about him. And as a person, he was wholly delightful. He would say that he was actually a frustrated opera singer. He had this wonderful bass voice. Yeah. And we, on one of the sets, we had adjoining dressing rooms. And early in the morning, I would hear him sing excerpts from Boris Godunov, no mean opera to start the day with. And he said, yes, that is where my true passion lies. But also loved making movies. And he was a master swordsman. And he was, of course, at a certain age when we did the last movie, so he couldn't be as agile as he once was. But he was very admiring of Hayden and Ewan, who are also master swordsmen. And you do see that in the movies, but as you know, in the movies, it's all edited, tricked out, and so on. You don't quite realize how brilliant they were. And I gather they might get a chance to do it again. So if you do happen to be watching that new series that's being made at the moment, watch those fights very closely, because I'm sure they'll be doing some more. And it'll be all them, and they will be just as brilliant now as they were then.
That I have no doubt of. Lisa, thank you. Wonderful question. What do we have next? Here's one from Matthew. Do you believe in an intelligent life on other planets?
Oh, I'd love to. Wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
And when that thing landed on Mars, it was so versatile. So many things. It all seemed like a walk in the park, didn't it? So many billions of miles away. But I know they're testing for signs of human life in previous ages, but I think they feel they're convinced that there isn't any of it at the moment. But maybe other planets will have some. It's just odd to think it's only us out there in the vast universe. You think there has to be somebody else who's making a mess of things. Sorry, right? But anyway, I hope so, but I can't believe it at the moment.
Fair. Absolutely fair. Matthew, thank you. And I think we have time for one or two more. What do we have next? From Val, how does it feel playing evil? I'll put it that way.
Really good. Yeah. No, it's fun. I mean, I have to say this. It's fun playing the bad guys. I don't quite know why. It's perverted to say that, doesn't it? But it's because these parts are usually meaty. You know, they usually have. And as we were saying earlier, it's always very nice to play someone who isn't. I mean, there's not much doubt about the Emperor, but there was a lot of doubt about Palpatine. I mean, if George had started the whole movies with that film, it would be very interesting to see if people had any inkling that this, apparently straightforward, not very interesting guy suddenly turned out to be this evil mastermind. And it gives you a certain power on set because people, they're not stupid, they're not scared of you. I mean, I'm just here, nothing terrifying about me. But when you're playing the character, when you do the voice, there's a sort of when I did go back to do the last movie, there was a scene which was inevitably going to be truncated, cut short a bit, the very opening scene, with he didn't know it at the time, the guy who was working for me all those years, and my voice first of all arrived into the scene as it did in the movie, but there was more to be said originally. Just as a voice. And we were in this vast studio, huge hangar down at Pinewood. And because I only had to do the to begin with, as they were lighting, and Adam was walking through, the awful premises of this strange evil hospital, and all I had to do was talk to him on what they call the God mic, which is a microphone which has enormous reverberation all over the studio, and I think the first line in the film is "at last." So that wasn't the first line we did in the studio. So many lines came and went as they always do in movies, in the editing and so on. But when let's say it was at last, when that happened, I could actually feel, and of course, Star Wars being Star Wars, a lot of people in the studio, apart from I think the cinematographer must have known, but there were so many people, they get the script that day and they're very busy. The Grips and all these other guys have got so many things to think about. They didn't really know I was coming back, and we weren't advertising it.
No, yeah.
And so that was extraordinary. There was a real sort of frisson in the studio. I like to think the frisson that Palpatine may have created to Adam Duray, but it was exciting, and also it was good to be able to do that voice on a marvelous echo God mic. It was like speaking to the universe, and then of course we did it with ordinary mics after that.
Yeah,
that was a great moment, I think, for everybody, certainly for the Star Wars fans in the studio.
And the Star Wars fans around the world as well. We saw the final product.
I hope so. Yes. We all hope they wouldn't think, "Oh Christ, not him again." But he's dead. He should be dead. But I thought it was. Palpatine is very hard to kill. Palpatine, and of course he was horribly mangled and injured. Thanks to Dave not catching me that day. long ago, but he did know how to get hold of the best scientists, and they're around, and had himself slowly but imperfectly recreated over the years, but he couldn't get by without the help of a vast machine, so until he got his power back in the way we all know, which was a subtle thing that not even he realized was going to happen.
Absolutely, indeed. No, our reaction was not him again. Our reaction was, finally, it's about time.
Well, that's good. Yes, I'll take it.
There you go. Please do. And Val, thank you. Wonderful question. And GalaxyCon viewers, this has been my time with Mr. Ian McDiarmid, but it absolutely does not have to be yours. If you'd like to chat with our guests like I have today, or purchase a personalized autograph, please sign up at GalaxyCon.com. And while you're there, please check out our schedule of upcoming events just like this one. Ian, this has been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for joining us on the GalaxyCon virtual stage. Any final words for our audience before we go?
A great pleasure for me. Nice to be back in human form. I know we've all been cut off lately, and when you play an emperor, the character is always cut off because he's not interested in anybody else, never mind not getting out very much in the last film. So it's nice to be back with you in this form. And we in London have just, as you in America are beginning to go, which is great. We're just being slowly allowed out, and we're all being very cautious and not doing anything stupid and being vaccinated. Yes, Palpatine has got 2 vaccines, and he recommends it to everybody as soon as possible. So that's the best thing. But it's very nice to be able to speak to you through this medium, which initially made me quite nervous. I'm not a great Zoomer. If people want to get in contact and you can't go outside, I'd say, well, there's the phone, But I've really rather enjoyed it, so maybe it'll catch on. Thank you.
I'm so glad we were able to make it palatable for you. Thank you for joining us. Glad to see you in good spirit and in absolutely good health. And Ian, it's been my absolute pleasure to serve you today and our audience. And to our audience, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for your great questions. Hope to see you all again soon. Until then, bye-bye, everyone. Take care, and please keep looking up.